Our world is totally dotted with these surreal, hidden fragments where nature really seems to be hiding its most majestic creations. It's almost like it's saving them for the few people curious enough to actually go looking. Like the quote says, there are places that just don't appear on any map. And we aren't just talking about a pretty view today. We're talking about places that completely defy our immediate comprehension. Spaces that hold a really deep, almost resonant energy.
And this brings up a genuinely fascinating question about those rare, weird fragments of Earth where hard geology stops and profound mysteries actually begin. Think about it for a second. We live in an era of GPS, satellites, and, absolute scientific certainty. Yet, there are still pockets of this planet where the very tools we literally rely on every day just stop working, and the physical environment behaves in ways that totally baffle modern scientists.
So, let's dive right into this metaphysical journey of natural wonders. Today, we're tracing a path from a sheer geological scale into unexplained scientific anomalies and finally arriving at our deep spiritual connections with the natural world.
Part 1. Sculpted by Deep Time.
Okay, before we can even begin to appreciate the myths and the anomalies, we really have to wrap our heads around the sheer amount of time it takes to carve a masterpiece out of solid rock. The scale of deep time shaping our Earth is just mind-boggling. Take the cliffs of Moher in Ireland, formed over 300 million years ago from an ancient seabed rising 700 feet into the air like the Earth was literally torn open. Or Table Mountain, with its bizarrely flat summit that somehow withstood 260 million years of erosion. And then there's Wulianyan in China. We're talking over 3,000 sandstone pillars carved over hundreds of millions of years by uplift and weathering. I mean, imagine waiting for your morning coffee to brew, but the process takes 300 million years. That's the level of patience nature had while crafting these powering monuments.
Now get this staggering number, 5387. That is the depth, in feet, of Lake Baikal. This 25 million-year-old body of water holds 20%, yes, a fifth, of the entire planet's unfrozen fresh water. It's so expansive and deep that tiny native life forms clean the water naturally, making it so incredibly clear you can literally see 31 feet straight down. It's an ancient, closed ecosystem that has somehow survived through epochs, completely self-sustaining and remarkably pure.
Just picture this. You're standing over that ancient ecosystem in the dead of winter, listening to the frozen surface booming and echoing all the way across the valley. As Lake Baikal freezes, its crystal-clear ice fractures. The sheer physical force of that ice shifting creates sounds exactly like cannon fire. It's this massive, powerful reminder that these ancient places aren't just static museum exhibits. They're incredibly alive, breathing, and dynamic forces.
Moving on to Section 2, Anomalies and Unexplained Phenomena.
So now we're stepping out of the realm of measurable geology and into spaces where the rules of physics just kind of seem to bend. Out in Moab, Utah, you have this harsh, eroded landscape that looks like a forgotten planet. But reality there gets a bit blurry. Among rocks shaped by millions of years of violent natural forces, people report hearing cracking sounds at sunrise that mimic human breathing. The wind pushes through narrow gaps to sound exactly like flutes. Compasses randomly shift near certain formations, and bizarre flickering lights appear right near the ground at night. It's an environment that completely challenges our understanding of what's real.
Which makes you wonder, why does modern technology, like our phones and compasses, completely fail or behave so erratically in these specific ancient locations? And it's not just a one-off thing. Over at Angkor Thom, a city built with perfect, glueless precision 800 years ago, magnetic anomalies cause electronics to just completely flatline. In Scotland's Fingal's Cave, these massive hexagonal basalt columns create organ-like echoes, and visitors actually report severe light distortions and this really weird feeling of time slowing down. And in places like the Teton Range and Wugu Gorge, we see unexplained flashing peak lights and compasses that just spin completely out of control. Science simply hasn't mapped the full energy of these spaces yet.
And honestly, when scientific tools fail to explain the whispers, or the lights, or the magnetism, what do? We inevitably turn to the stories our ancestors left behind. We're storytellers by nature. When we encounter a landscape that breathes, glows, or scrambles our instruments, we don't just shrug and walk away. We weave narratives to try and give some meaning to the mystery.
And that brings us to Section 3, Echoes of Ancient Legends. It is absolutely incredible how what science calls a simple magnetic anomaly or a biological reaction, local cultures have beautifully interpreted as a divine presence. Take Table Mountain in South Africa. It doesn't just have a 260-million-year-old flat summit, it often generates this stark white cloud cover that continuously rolls over the edge. And because radio signals frequently scramble near the top, likely due to unusual magnetic fields, locals didn't just write it off as weird weather. They named it the tablecloth of the gods.
Or look at how biology coldly identifies a rare glowworm reaction, while local lore beautifully interprets it as guiding ancestral spirits keeping watch. Down in the White Tomo Caves, millions of tiny biological lights create what literally looks like a subterranean galaxy reflecting off an underground river. Now sure, we know the chemical mechanics behind the blue light today, but the local legend gives this 30-million-year-old limestone cavern profound spiritual meaning, seeing those lights as ancestors leading the way through the total darkness.
And it's just fascinating how a water source that deeply puzzles modern scientists is revered as the very descent point of ancient gods. The Baijiang waterfall drops from hundreds of feet high, creating this massive symphony with the wind and the forest. But here's the real paradox. Its water flow remains virtually identical whether it's the rainy season or a harsh, dry drought. And researchers literally cannot locate its exact source. So to the ancients, this constant, unexplainable life-giving force simply had to be the place where divine beings came down to earth.
Even places like Santorini, born from a violently destructive ancient volcanic eruption that left an underwater caldera venting hot gases, became the mystical heart of the Minoan civilization and Greek legends. The intense orange-pink sunsets and those sheer crescent-shaped cliffs create an emotional power that is just undeniable. It's a striking reminder that the absolute most violent geological destructions often give birth to the most revered and sacred cultural landscapes in human history.
Which leads us to our final section, preserving the sacred wild.
As our populations grow and our tech advances, the big question is, how do we protect these delicate ecosystems while still satisfying our deep human urge to connect with the unexplainable? Whether we're enforcing strict conservation limits or simply touching a historic rope ladder suspended thousands of feet in the air, humanity is actively seeking that ancient connection. At the cliffs of Moher and Wuling Yuan, we've put in fixed trails and heavy regulations specifically because we recognize their irreplaceable value. Meanwhile, at Cliff Village in China, people still place a hand on the rough remnants of an old, terrifying rope ladder dangling over a 2,600-foot drop, silently asking the past for protection. We just desperately want to touch the magic.
But hey, you don't always have to travel to an untouched, freezing wilderness like Alaska's Hatcher Pass to actually feel this deep spiritual resonance. We're finding ways to bring that meditative, mysterious energy right into the very heart of our modern, concrete existence.
Take the Key City Forest Garden, for example. Amidst a bustling city, people still gather around a sacred stump to connect with nature's rhythm. It's this urban eco-park full of artificial hills and winding trails. Yet, local residents maintain the legend of the Time Guardian. Every single New Year's Day at sunrise, people flock to this specific stump to meditate. There's a wonderful irony there, right? Finding deep, ancient quiet by gathering around a single stump right next to man-made hills. But it just proves that our human need for reflection and ancient ritual can totally thrive even within city limits.
And talk about a paradox. Imagine finding profound spiritual mystery, unexplainable anomalies, and meditative peace right in the dead center of a dense, modern megadevelopment. The Huaguayan community is a massive, incredibly dense complex of packed skyscrapers. But down on the ground level, residents are meditating by man-made lakes, tapping into what they claim are pockets of special mind-quieting energy. Plus, there are all these local whispers of empty floors where lights always mysteriously remain on, as if they're run by unseen entities. Even in our most manufactured concrete jungles, the surreal and the unexplainable still find a way to seep in.
So, after witnessing all these breathtaking physical formations and their totally unexplained anomalies, I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought to ponder as you look at the world around you today. We've explored impossible waterfalls, mountains that literally bend compasses, and urban sanctuaries that hum with ancient energy. It really makes you wonder, in a world we think we have entirely mapped and completely measured, what other breathtaking mysteries are quietly waiting out there just beyond our line of sight, ready to challenge absolutely everything we know?